people are good. They're born with pure hearts. Some are fortunate to be born into wealth and privilege, whereas others are born into lives of modest means. They go to school, then perhaps college. Some may find their fortune by chance, while others pass their exams, get jobs. They date, get married, have kids. They wake up faithfully to the sound of an alarm clock every morning, shave, take a shower, go out to the kitchen, take their morning coffee, eat breakfast, read the morning paper the family dog has fetched from outside. They take the final sip of juice, go to the bathroom, kiss their wife, and wish their kids a good day at school. They put on their suit jackets, collect their briefcase, close the door behind them, walk to their car, get inside, turn on the ignition, and the car explodes into a fiery ball of flames and billowing black smoke. The police are called. They arrive. They take a statement. A day or so later, the police return, place the wife under arrest for suspicion. This story is featured on a local news network. Residue of an incendiary device was found. It can't be traced. A woman is sent to prison, charged for a crime she never committed. The story, her story, fades away into the distance. Kevin, whose education was no higher than a high school diploma, was an inquisitive young man who had a diverse interest in politics, history, science, and sociology. He had endured years of abuse by his parents, who shunned him in favor of his sister, a college graduate with a scholarship to UCLA. He had escaped the stranglehold of control and triangulation between his mother and father, and made numerous advances to seduce her son into bed with her, to make her husband jealous. Estranged by proxy from his father, he became defiant, living in the shadow of his father, whom his mother portrayed as a pathetic weakling, but compared to his father by his mother. Kevin sought out a new family in his friendships, in school theater and social clubs. The people from wealthier families were drawn to him. Some found in him the contrast of warmth and free-spiritedness in the cold social climate of the wealthy, a part of themselves whose dreaminess and playful attitudes in life had been suffocated by their family's rigid constructs and conformity. Many of these families were serving in high positions of city, government, and in the alliance of defense contractors, such as Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop, as well as pharmaceutical companies, also allied as part of the global defense complex. Kevin liked to spend time with his new family, affluent university-educated friends who enjoyed fine cocaine, cannabis, and pure LSD, among other drugs. They took him under their wing. Any family who slept together kept together. Kevin and his friends celebrated his 18th birthday at his girlfriend's home in Pacific Palisades, California. Through his girlfriend, Kate, he managed to land an interview with a company hiring information technology experts, of which he had learned about on his own. When asked at the interview, he explained that he had had no credential or certification from any school. After passing many tests, he was accepted into a gaming company to create and develop games through his coding knowledge, as well as his ability to write and create stories instantly. Through an apprenticeship, he ascended through the ranks to become their lead performer, but was mysteriously delegated to work under the head of human resources. He was asked to recruit people with exceptional ability to code and create special text formats, which transmitted metadata to another database directly connected to a head political group in China. Kevin's girlfriend grew up in her home in La Cañada, Flint Ridge. Her father was the lead engineer of space technology at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory since the 1950s. The advent of usurping the name of its original founder, Jack Parsons, a student and member of a Hermetic organization frequented by L. Ron Hubbard. Jet Propulsion Laboratories would be buried under the tombstone of von Karman. Kevin moved into a Hollywood neighborhood with a friend from high school. His parents thought they were lovers, and nothing could be further from the truth. Kevin fell in love with David, a mutual friend who proclaimed himself the Beast 666. Kevin drove him out to an attorney who was selling Persian heroin. The apartment in Hollywood had become an orgiastic haven of expression. There were lines to the bathroom to vomit. Kevin politely provided plastic shopping bags to the line waiting to get to the toilet to vomit, some of them returning to the living room, scratching their bellies, and talking without restraint, or occupying a corner of the room to sit, with a look of bovine placidity. Weeks later, David invited Kevin to his apartment in West Hollywood, a townhouse on Alta Vista off of Sunset Boulevard, where the hookers frequently strolled. David's girlfriend was one of the prostitutes that he turned out to make him money he needed for his heroin habit. Upon arriving, David pressed his fingers against his lips after opening the door. "She's asleep," he whispered. "She's got seaweed in her pussy. She's giving herself an abortion." He signaled to Kevin to follow him to his upstairs bedroom. He had Kevin take a seat and gave him a piece of paper to read and a phone number to call. The phone number belonged to a pharmacy. David told Kevin that he needed him to call in a delivery of Orange Cap Demerol to be delivered to this address for Dr. Larry Glass. The piece of paper had the actual DEA number of the doctor that David intended to impersonate. David went to the downstairs bathroom to insert colored contact lenses and added a touch of stage makeup and graying to his hair. He put on a two-piece suit and put his head in the freezer to dry his skin out. After about 20 minutes, the doorbell rang. It was the pharmacy. David opened the door and asked the delivery clerk of the pharmacy to come in. He handed David a bag which contained 2 vials of Orange Cap Demerol and a bag of 10 1cc diabetic syringes. He paid the clerk and escorted him out the door. David came back upstairs, looking like a completely different person, in a suit with brown eyes and graying hair, with a mottled complexion. He held the vial up and put one of the syringes inside to draw almost half the vial. "This will be slow," he said. Then he pulled down his pants part way, exposing his hip and injected the drug into himself. After pulling up his pants, he said, "See that over there?" Kevin looked at a chest of drawers, where on top of it sat an inverted pharmacy syrup bottle, slowly dripping its contents through a piece of cheesecloth into a large drinking glass. "That piece of shit pharmacist tried to sell me that bottle of narcotic syrup. It has ground up broken glass in it. I called him and threatened to kill his wife and children if he didn't replace this one." Then, after another 15 minutes, came a knock at the door, and the doorbell ringing. David peered suspiciously through the blinds. "It's the cops. Hurry downstairs." Kevin followed David downstairs and went out a back door at the kitchen to a narrow walkway behind the building. David went back inside. Kevin never heard from David again. Kevin got onto a bus and rode away to Gypsy's apartment, Kate's friend, to wait for Kate to come and get him. A month later, Kevin was asked by his supervisor if he'd like to attend a special party of elite people on a yacht off Catalina Island. He had asked his girlfriend if she would like to go. She declined, but offered to help him pick out something to wear. Before the weekend of the attending party, they bought some elegant casual clothes at Barney's in Beverly Hills. When the weekend arrived, Kevin and his supervisor, Charles, took a town car into the Marina Harbor to catch the client boat, which ferried people to and from the yacht. Kevin and Charles were greeted by a rather young hostess, topless, in a bikini thong. Making their way to the cocktail area, Charles was greeted by his friend Jeffrey, who is a media mogul connected to high-profile people in Washington, including the President of the United States, numerous senators, Hollywood directors, and a myriad of people who owned large tech corporations in Silicon Valley. Jeffrey introduced Charles and Kevin to the CEO of Janssen Pharmaceuticals, who was playfully sharing a Kreplach's canopy with another topless girl who couldn't have been more than 16 years old. And at one moment, Charles handed Kevin a scotch, and he was spirited away by a famous Hollywood director who was almost unrecognizable from a distance, wearing a baseball cap, some dark sunglasses, and what appeared to be a fake beard. Kevin felt intimidated, standing there alone with a drink, in such a group of oddly mixed company, some of whom either ignored or didn't seem to care about how they were dressed. Some of them looked rather unkempt, gathered in intimate clusters, speaking in hushed tones. A couple of men, one dressed in a business suit and another in all denim with sunglasses, both ordered a cocktail at the bar, resuming their conversation about a special component that they were adding to a new wave of vaccines, a component that contained a type of nanotechnology that could infiltrate parts of the body, the blood-brain barrier, and like tiny robots on a molecular level, be orchestrated from a remote location, attacking their hosts. With funding from the National Institutes of Health, under the umbrella of a health program, they had been testing this technology on mice and monkeys over a span of the last 10 years, as part of a new eugenics program. Its goal, eventually, to weed out people who were no longer compliant with deep politics, and that, in the event of an uprising, people could systematically be eliminated in plain sight, without any suspicion, assassination without complicity. Kevin also noticed numerous closed-circuit cameras in the oddest places. With his fingertips, he felt a strange object under the bar, and when he knelt down to look at what it was, he found a camera directly staring back at him. And on the bow of the yacht came screams and laughter from a carnival tent lit with tiki torches. Peeking inside, there were businessmen sitting on a lounge, enjoying lap dances from both nude boys and girls, while others snapped photos of the others in silly poses. The thick odor of hashish, burning in the central hookah, gave off an offensive air of depravity in this event populated by recognizable world players. While peeking inside this tent, came a tap on his shoulder. It was a man that he felt he knew. At least his voice was recognizable. It was David, the man who was impersonating a doctor for the illegal narcotics delivery. "Well, what are you waiting for?" he said, ushering Kevin inside the tent. "Go in. Don't be shy." Kevin walked inside, but as soon as he saw that David had not followed him in, he walked back out. Two teenagers, a boy and girl, stopped him and asked to take a photo with him with their camera. But Kevin politely declined, asking where the nearest bathroom was. The teenagers, who were completely nude, pointed him toward the middle of the ship where the stairs were. After making it to the bathroom, he took out his cell phone and made a call to his girlfriend, Kate. He was greeted by voicemail. He told Kate that he didn't understand what the purpose of the party was, that it was rather decadent, and that he didn't know how much respected people could participate in such an event, if they even knew that they were being videotaped. And then came a beep. His time was up, so he'd have to call again. He said he would try to find Charles, to give him an excuse to get off the boat. And there were surveillance cameras everywhere, possibly a setup. There was a knock at the bathroom door. Kevin hung up. When he opened the door, it was Jeffrey, the man he was introduced to earlier. "Enjoying the party?" he asked. "Yes," Kevin said. As Kevin brushed against Jeffrey to get out of the bathroom, Jeffrey said, "We limit our use of cell phones on the boat. It's a matter of courtesy for the other people here. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. I didn't know." Kevin made it back to the bar where Charles was deep kissing a young man who was groping him. Kevin ordered 2 double scotches. "Oh, there you are," Charles said. Kevin gulped down his first scotch and asked Charles for a moment alone. He took Charles off to the side and asked who was running the party. Charles asked him why he wanted to know. Kevin told him it was like a paradise, and that he wanted to thank the person in charge of the event. "You already met him." Charles casually points over to Jeffrey, turns to the bartender. "Take Mr. Epstein a bourbon." Jeffrey, who was standing on the opposite side of the ship, was talking to Hillary, who was sipping her cocktail. David once again emerged. He walked over and patted Charles on the back. "So how's our young Kevin working out at the firm?" David said with a wink. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a vial of cocaine. "Well, he's working out just fine. You know how new kids are." Charles puts the vial straight up to his nose and snorts it out of the vial. He turns to offer some to Kevin. There was an eerie silence between the 3 of them at that moment that seemed to pervade the entire yacht. Both Charles and David staring intensely at Kevin, as if they were studying every micro-expression on his face. And suddenly, seemingly from out of nowhere, came a camera flash, which broke the silence as the Portuguese music continued to play in the background. "Care for some?" Kevin shakes his head no. "Actually, I don't really feel well. I think I'd like to go now," Kevin said. "Where to?" asked Charles. "Back to the harbor?" "I really gotta go," Kevin said firmly, trying to keep his voice low. "We just got here to the Paradise and now you want to go?" "Yes," Kevin said. "Well, the client boat is just down there by the entrance, same way we came in. Just ask and they'll return you to the harbor. I think I'll be staying on." Charles walked away. David looked at Kevin and reaches out to give Kevin a hug, and then whispers in Kevin's ear, "You're my brother," and then kisses him on the cheek. "Well, nice seeing you again," David said. David walked away. Kevin is ferried across the harbor, where he finds the town car that takes him back to the office, from where he drives back home. Kate was fast asleep. He undressed and got into bed with her. He kissed her goodnight. The alarm goes off. It's 6:30 a.m. Kate is in the kitchen. Breakfast is prepared. "How did it go at the party?" Kate asked. "I called you from the yacht. Didn't you get any of my messages?" "No," she said. Kevin takes a bite of his eggs. "We'll have to talk later. I'm late." He grabs his coat. It was particularly cold that morning. He could see his own breath meeting with the cold air outside. Inside, Kate is emptying his plate when the phone rings. She answers, but there's nothing but silence on the other end. The windows of the kitchen suddenly shattered into a million pieces. There's an explosion outside. She runs to the window. Kevin's car is engulfed in flames. After a moment, the final explosion of the gas tank that shatters the remaining windows downstairs. Kate calls the police. What is reality? How can someone say that something is a myth when nothing is real? That reality is an illusion. And if reality is an illusion, then so is the myth. But then, if there is no reality, then the illusion is also a myth. And if the myth itself is a myth, then nothing exists. But if nothing exists, then neither does the question. And so if there is no question, then there are no answers. The sum total of truth disintegrated into a million pieces. And what if reality was something other than a subjective reality? By what means can we measure this if there is no understanding beyond that of physical senses, peering through instruments calculating speed, distance, and position to this reality? And the answer is, well, it's not my job. I just work here. This is Peter Tulkin from Far Away. From Far Away was produced in collaboration with Steve Andrews, Patricia Montana, and Bonnie Montrose. Music composition, recording, and mixing by Andrew Spitzer. Recording, editing, mixing, and looping by Mr. Delmar. From Far Away will air again with a selected rebroadcast.